Hello, and welcome to another edition of Academic Matters. I'm Joe Marbach, the Provost at Salle University. In this first segment, I'm joined by Dr. Fran Ryan, who's a professor of American Studies here at Salle. Fran, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me, Joe.
Fran, most of the audience that will be watching probably don't know what American Studies is. So can you tell the folks how you came to American Studies and how you came to bring it here to LaSalle?
Well, I was hired initially as an adjunct professor back in the 70s, and I received my first formal academic tenure track position in 1987. Dean Barbara Millard invited me to head up this initiative to start this new program called American Studies. It was brand new to LaSalle. American Studies is an interdisciplinary program that brings in English, history, art history, music, communication theory, philosophy. And it started back in the 1940s, first at Harvard and Amherst, and then it came throughout the entire country. So Barbara had this vision that American Studies would serve two purposes. It would be a standalone major housed in the history department, and it would be a broad-based liberal arts area, but it also would serve the needs of education majors who were majoring in elementary education at the time.
And would need a specialization to teach in grade schools?
Well, you don't need American Studies to teach in the grade schools. You get certified in elementary, but the American Studies provides the content, because many times the students who are teaching kindergarten through grades 4 or 5 need to construct humanities units that would bring in literature and history and art history, and our students coming through our program, because they're double majors in American Studies and education, would have an obvious advantage over many of the other students who are graduating from some of our schools in the region because they don't have American Studies.
Now, Fran, before we went on air, we were talking about your background, and you bring an interdisciplinary background. So I guess back when Dean Millard was creating the program, you were the perfect candidate because you were actually in the education department.
Yes.
And she wanted you to bring your expertise in history to the program.
Exactly. When I was first hired, because I have a BA from LaSalle in English, and then I went on to Temple for a master's in English, and to Villanova for a master's in history and education, and a doctorate in the history of ed from Temple. And so I knew education, I knew history, I knew English, and I think this was something that Dr. Millard saw, and she figured that I would be a good person to found the program, which I've been doing ever since 2001. That was the freshman class.
Okay. How many students are in the program? How many do you advise and direct?
Right now, the lion's share of my students are double majors in K through 4 elementary, and then they're doubling in American Studies. We have about 125 of those students who are double majors. We have about 10 double majors in other areas besides education. There are students majoring in DART and American Studies.
DART is digital
arts, absolutely. Okay. Communication, some of them are computer science majors. And we also have about 10 or 12 American Studies majors. In the past, our students have gone on to law school. There's one student who's a sheriff in Delaware County. There's another student who's in real estate. Many of them are continuing their professional studies in communication theory. They're going on to journalism. We currently have one student who's finishing her PhD at Penn State Harrisburg, who came out of our program. So American Studies students can do quite a wide range of professional endeavors, yes.
Okay. Now, recently we at LaSalle hosted the Eastern American Studies Association. You were an integral part in developing the program. Can you give folks a sampling of some of the presentations that were made, because I was impressed with just the scope of topics that were covered.
Let me try to kind of contextualize this, Joe. When I was first asked to run the program, one of the first things I did was connect to the American Studies Association in Washington, and of course that's divided up into different regions, and the Eastern American Studies Association serves Pennsylvania, portions of Virginia, all the way up to New York and to New Jersey. So I got involved in that, and one of the things that I did once I was asked to be on the executive board, was to look closely at how that particular organization can foster research for undergrads. Lots of times conferences showcase the research of graduate students and faculty. And I said, gee, why don't we do something with undergrads? Because here at LaSalle, we were actually encouraging students to publish in an online journal that we developed here at LaSalle called the Eagle's Eye. And I said, why don't we do something like this, where we're having what we call an undergraduate roundtable in American Studies at the conference, which meets every spring. And we move around. We've been at Rutgers, at Penn State. We've been at Rochester, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And we offer a prize for the very best paper. There are varying numbers of students who compete for the undergraduate prize in any given year. It can be 7 students and as high as 12, depending upon which schools would send a student to this kind of competition.
Are these generally seniors?
They're juniors. They are seniors. Most of them are finishing up their senior seminar papers. And as I said, one student represents each department that's participating. So we had students this past conference from Rutgers, from Penn State, from Franklin and Marshall, and from LaSalle. And of course, I'm very proud that Molly Fay, one of our students, actually won the prize for the best undergraduate paper.
Yeah, she took advantage of the home court.
Now what happens is that they all come to me, and then I send them to Penn State Harrisburg, where there's a blind review of all the papers. So I really didn't know that that Molly was the recipient until I was told about 2 minutes before I was given the plaque and asked to go to the podium and invite all the students.
When they handed you the envelope.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, well, it was a great accomplishment, and you know, a reflection on the great training that Molly's getting here at the university. Fran, what kinds of courses do students take in American Studies?
Well, there are 3 courses that all the students must take. They must do the Intro to American Studies, which is typically done in the freshman year. American Studies 200 is a sophomore level course, and then the capstone seminar, American Studies 400, can be taken either the junior or senior year. The introductory course focuses on American character. What is American character? Is there such a thing as American character? How has it evolved from the colonial period to the present? And we see how there are elements of race, gender, class, and ethnicity that kind of interface with American character. The American Studies 200 course is a theme course that changes periodically when it's given, and the same thing for the capstone seminar. The theme changes. In the recent past, we've had medicine in America for the capstone theme. We've had food and drink in America, which is a course that I teach. Steve Smith did a marvelous job from the English department teaching a seminar on Bob Dylan in the 60s. We took advantage of the Dylan collection we have in the Connolly Library, which was very, very popular. Students loved that course. But those are the courses, and then draped over those 3 are the other courses coming from the different academic areas, such as American literature, American history, American philosophy, American art, American music, those kinds of things.
So are students required to take a smattering of those?
They take a smattering, but there's also what we call a vertical dimension to the curriculum, where they take a 3-course concentration. The 3 courses can be in the same academic area, such as 3 courses in American history, or they can construct their own. They can take, for instance, gender in America. So they might take 3 courses, one from political science, one from art, one from history. We also offer an internship, which students may also take. We have a student right now at the Constitution Center who's doing an internship. So this is something that's also very popular with many of our students.
Yeah. Now, Fran, you mentioned that course on food in America.
Food and drink, yeah.
Food and drink, and I know there are folks at home that are looking at the television and they're saying, I know that guy from somewhere. Where did I see him? Your course was actually recently featured in the Philadelphia Inquirer. We're taping here on April 15th, Tax Day, so about less than a month ago it was featured. Tell us a little bit about your approach. What's different about food and drink in America?
Well, the students have a capstone requirement of a 20-page research paper that they have to produce that must use primary materials, must also use ethnographic research as well as bibliographic research. But I have some mini assignments that lead up to that, and one of the assignments is they have to do something called the diner assignment, where they will read 2 kind of traditional scholarship journal essays dealing with the diner and how the diner has changed from the 1940s when it first appeared in large measure in urban areas. And then I actually have them go out to a diner of their choice where they will actually talk to, if possible, the manager, the waiters, the waitresses, and get a sense of how the diner has changed from its initial appearance in America earlier in the 20th century. And then they write a report on this showing refinements of some of these things that they first read when they read these two articles. And it was picked up by the Philadelphia Inquirer. Actually, one of my former students that I taught in the American Studies 100 class was the person who did the essay. And John Carolus from LaSalle was the person that really was the point person on this initiative. But it really captures what we do, and it's very academic, even though the actual title of the seminar is rather glitzy. The students learn an awful lot about traditions of food as ritual, as symbol. Students do research on everything from diet to food preparation to configurations of diners.
And you even tour meat packing plants?
Yes, we have a wonderful relationship with Dietz and Watson in Northeast Philadelphia, and the students have an opportunity to actually go there and spend 2 hours. And then, of course, prior to that, they read sections from The Jungle, one of the great muckraking classics of American literature, and they also read Fast Food Nation. So they can see how the various regulations at the federal level and the local level have come into play to render our meat supply completely pure and in contrast to the way it used to be. And some of the students who were kind of waffling about whether they're going to eat lunch meat after they leave Dietz and Watson, they'll say, that's the brand that I want.
They're willing to do it.
They're greatly impressed, yes.
Well, Fran, thank you. It's been a great explanation of our American Studies program here at LaSalle.
Thank you, Joe.
It sounds like a unique program
Yep.
to many of our students, and I'm sure they're moving on to great things.
Thank you for inviting me, Joe. Nice
It's been a
talking to you.
pleasure.
Right.
My guest has been Dr. Fran Ryan, Professor of American Studies at LaSalle. Please stay tuned when I'll be joined by Kristin Wentzel, a professor in our accounting department.
Hey fellow TV viewers, are you bored? Are you tired of the same old shows? Having thousands of channels to watch, but there's nothing there? Tired of sitting by yourself on your old mama's striped couch? Sitting in your room by yourself, watching someone who resembles your grandfather? Yeah, I know. I used to be just like you. By now, all hope is lost. You're flipping through channels, wondering what to watch. Boring, 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 boring. Wait, what's this? LaSalle TV. It's new, it's bold, it's great. It's not your ordinary TV.
Hello, and welcome back to Academic Matters. Once again, I'm Joe Marbach, the Provost here at Salle University. In this segment, I'm joined by Kristin Wentzel, who is an Associate Professor in our Department of Accounting. Kristin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Joe.
Kristin, how did you end up at LaSalle? What's your background and what attracted you to come to teach accounting?
Well, I'm an alum of LaSalle, so I came here to the accounting department. I was an accounting major here, so it's been a big thrill for me to come back as faculty. I think that I started out really not sure when I was in high school whether I wanted to be a teacher or whether I wanted to go into business, and I eventually chose business and came here and loved the accounting department and loved being part of the accounting side, and I went out into public accounting for a little while, but I still had that urge, I think, to be in the classroom. I was, one of those people that enjoyed being a student, I think, maybe a little too much, and so I went back to school. I did my MBA at Villanova and my PhD at Temple, and then eventually landed back here in the accounting department.
Okay. Did you do any adjunct teaching before?
I did. So I did some adjunct work when I was a student at Temple. I was a teaching assistant, and so I taught some classes there. And I actually covered for a year at Rowan for somebody who was on sabbatical. So I had a one-year appointment while I was writing my dissertation. And then I also did some adjunct here for LaSalle. And then when I was initially graduated, I went to Drexel for 2 years and taught. And then Jack Reardon, who was head of the accounting department, and he had been my professor when I was a student here, he had an opening, and he called me at Drexel and said, hey, would you think about coming back to LaSalle and interviewing? And I think LaSalle presented for me a better balance of what I was looking for, because Drexel was a heavy research institution. They had a doctoral program. Your requirements to publish were a lot heavier. And the classes were so different than they are here. When I taught at Drexel, I taught in big auditoriums. So I had 130 students in the classroom, and you had teaching assistants who ran all your office hours. So you didn't really see the students, you didn't get to know the students. It wasn't the mix that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so
And here, your largest class might be what, 35?
35.
Yeah.
35 would be our largest class here. It's a totally different environment than it was there at Drexel. And while I enjoy research and like that side of my job, I love being with the students, and I think that they were what drew me into education and into teaching. So.
Yeah, that's a common theme I hear among the faculty that I get to interview and talk to, when we're having lunch. They really see themselves as teacher scholars.
Absolutely.
And are quick to make that distinction,
Right.
that it's the teaching part, the connection to students that's most important to them.
I think that's what's so rewarding, is working with the students and to watch them grow and to blossom and mature and to go out there and to be successful. And, one thing that's so unique about LaSalle, I think, is that we have such a strong connection with our alum, and we have so many events that bring them back onto campus. And so it's so rewarding to see them 10 years down the road and all that they've accomplished and that they've gone on to do, and that connection is still there, and they come back and they give back to our students, and they're great role models.
Yeah, you mentioned
our
that
students.
connection, and I guess, is it next week or the week after, the accounting?
We have two big
Alumni
events
dinner?
coming up. So we have the accounting alumni dinner is coming up in 2 weeks, and that's a wonderful event. It brings back a lot of our.
It's one of the largest events on
It is.
campus. It's
It
just
is.
amazing. I think it's standing room only.
Absolutely. And then next week on the 25th is our Bankers Day event for the Business Perspectives course that I coordinate and run. And so that's another big event that brings our alum onto campus and to help judge our freshman teams. And so both of those events are really rewarding, I think, because there's just such a connection there with those LaSalle alum, and they like to come back and they like to be a part of things.
Now, Bankers Day isn't just limited to accounting students.
No, so all business students take Business 100, they take the Business Perspectives course, they take it their spring semester of their freshman year. And so it's a required core course that they take. And it's a pretty neat course. They really are trying to get exposure to all areas of business, and we do it by having them write a business plan. So they work in teams and they come up with a fictitious product or service that they want to launch, and they work together then to come up with, all right, well, if we have this great idea, we have to think about how we would actually make this particular product, or how would we offer this service. And they do research on equipment and machinery and propose, how they would produce this particular product, and then they go out there and think about, all right, well, who's our target market and how would we reach that target market? What kind of advertising would we have to do? So they look at the marketing side, and then, you know, clearly the numbers are always in the background there. They have to figure out how are they going to be profitable? How are they going to, you know, sell this product, and what price should they set for it? How many units do they think they could sell? And then, you know, how do they balance that with all of their own cost and all of their expenses? And they write a business plan and they put together a presentation, and then on Bankers Day they pitch their ideas to mock bankers, our alum and executives who come on campus.
This is like the original Shark Tank.
It is. It's a friendly version
Friendlier
of Shark
version.
Tank is what we call that. We tend to show them the Shark Tank video the first week of class and say, this is kind of what we're going to be doing, but in a much nicer
way.
nurturing type of way. I wouldn't say that any of our bankers are sharks, but they give back. They give a whole afternoon to come and to listen to our students present, and they, you know, give them suggestions and pointers, and I think it's a great networking opportunity for our students, and they get some great advice, and in the end, I think it also builds their own self-confidence that, wow, I'm a freshman, and look at what I did from this one course, that I was able to sort of hold my own here amongst these executives and to talk knowledgeably about different areas of business, and I think it's a great course.
Yeah, and I know that our alums use that model even in their businesses, or
Absolutely.
There was one competition in a company, and it was our alums won it using the Business 100 model, I'm told, not too long ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's fed nicely too into the entrepreneurship center that has been started here, and you know, it's a required course for those students, and then they've been able to build on that with Steve Mellick's direction. And so I think it's a unique area that we have sort of started to carve out. But yeah, it's a great class.
Now, Kristin, you also specialize in managerial accounting.
Right.
Where does that fit in the program when you teach those specialized courses? Are they junior level, senior level?
So we do, sophomore year, they actually do take an introductory managerial accounting course, and I haven't taught that course in a little while, but it's a 2-credit course that sort of starts to expose them to this idea of what happens behind the scenes. So financial accounting is looking at the decisions that people outside of the company are trying to make, where managerial accounting is focusing on the managers inside and how do they decide strategic decisions that they need to make to be competitive. So the students do get a little exposure to it sophomore year in their management accounting course, but I teach them their junior year in cost accounting. So that is the same year that they would be doing auditing and they would be doing tax. They start to take all these specializations and decide where it is that they, you know, are leaning towards when they go out there into the workforce. And then I also get to see some of the students back senior year. We do a senior seminar, which is really an advanced cost accounting type of course that I teach for them. So,
and how many students would be in a senior seminar like that?
well, we cap it at 24 is what the senior seminars.
So you're really going to work hands-on with these students?
Right. So it's a much smaller dynamic, and they do a lot of high-end presentations, a lot of high-end analysis that they're thinking of at that stage. So it's fun for me because I see them at the freshman year. I see them either in the introductory accounting course or in the business perspectives course, and then I get to see them junior and senior year as they're really almost ready to leave us and to go out there and be successful on their own.
Okay. Now, I did mention that teacher-scholar model. How does your scholarship help inform what you're doing in the classroom?
Right, so my scholarship really kind of falls into 2 categories. In accounting, there are 2 basic streams. Some research is what we call archival research, where they would look at things like how does an auditor's opinion change the stock price for a company? So when they come out and release that information, do we see a change in stock price? That is mostly based in finance and economics. I follow the other model. I do behavioral accounting research, which is much more strongly rooted in organizational behavior and in the psychology discipline. So my research looks at really how managers' perceptions of different things will change some of their behaviors. And in particular, I do research in the budgeting accounting field. So I look at things like how does your perception of the fairness of that budget or the fairness of the process that determined that budget, how does that change how you behave towards that budget and whether or not you're going to work hard towards that goal, whether or not you're committed to that goal. Does it change your satisfaction with your job, your commitment to the company? So all of those things are really in the management field. So in cost accounting, we do a whole chapter on budgeting.
And so you're teaching the students some of the best practices of
Exactly.
how to go about
Right,
allocating the resources.
And some of the behavioral pieces that go along with that, some of those intangibles is really where I think my research focuses at, that, you know, it's not just the numbers that are important, but how did you arrive at those numbers? How do you communicate those numbers to people that are underneath of you? You know, in particular now there's scarce resources. All companies are trying to operate very lean. And so most of them have budget cuts, and people have to figure out, how do we do more with less, and how do we keep our employees still motivated, that they're not frustrated and they want to still try to meet those budget allocations. So really that behavioral side of that.
Yeah, it sounds like some of the folks in my job in higher education need to take a refresher in that course.
Right.
We're just about out of time. Kristin, any other thoughts on where the department's headed? I know it's really strong in our.
Yeah, we have a great department. We have some really great students, great alum. We have such great faculty in there. I think our most recent endeavors have been towards that 4-year BS MBA program that we've been offering to really allow our students to come out with that 150 hours that they need for the CPA.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. My guest has been Dr. Kristin Wentzel, an associate professor in our Department of Accounting. Once again, my name is Joe Marbach. I'm the provost at LaSalle University. Thank you for watching.